All right, we've got an interesting inter-GOP catfight today. Dick Cheney versus Rand Paul. Now, recently, Dick Cheney wrote an op-ed saying, President Obama is horribly wrong about Iraq. We have to send in more and more troops. Rand Paul wrote an op-ed back saying, what are you, nuts? I don't want to go anywhere near Iraq. So Rand Paul was on Meet the Press, and they asked him about it.
Rarely has a U.S. president been so wrong about so much at the expense of so many. Do you think Dick Cheney is a credible critic of this president?
I think the same questions could be asked of those who supported the Iraq war. You know, were they right in their predictions? Were there weapons of mass destruction there? That's what the war was sold on. Was democracy easily achievable? Was the war won in 2005 when many of these people said it was won? They didn't really, I think, understand the civil war that would break out. And what's going on now, I don't blame on President Obama. Has he really got the solution? Maybe there is no solution. But I do blame the Iraq war on the chaos that is in the Middle East. I also blame those who are for the Iraq war for emboldening Iran.
Damn, a Republican making sense on foreign policy. When's the last time that happened? But look, at this point, everybody in the country agrees. Really? Outside of the idiot neocons, are there people saying, man, Iraq war, we nailed it. That went really, really well. Let's do it again. So, of course, among those idiot neocons is Darth Vader Dick Cheney. So he's going to come out and tell us, no, Rand Paul doesn't know what he's talking about. Oh, tell us more, Dick.
Rand Paul, with all due respect, is basically an isolationist. He doesn't believe we ought to be involved in that part of the world. I think it's absolutely essential. One of the things I worried about 12 years ago and that I worry about today is that there will be another 9/11 attack, and that the next time it'll be with weapons far deadlier than airline tickets and box cutters.
Oh, here we go again. Old bag of tricks. Oh, look at this, 9/11. There'll be another 9/11 unless we reinvade Iraq. Oh, come on, dude. that is not going to work again. Okay, look, I know that Obama sent in 300 special forces who they tell me are not ground troops, even though they are troops on the ground. Okay, I know that's how you can get sucked into a war, and I know I've been warning about it. But the American people are going to put an end to it. They're not going to let us reinvade Iraq. Are you nuts? You can talk about 9/11 until you're blue in the face, until you have 7 more heart attacks, okay? But it's not going to work this time. You know what he also mentioned in that interview? He said, well, what if Afghanistan also gets destabilized because we're not leaving enough troops there? More troops, more war, right? And then what happens is they go in and capture northern Pakistan, and Pakistan's nukes mushroom clouds. This is the same exact playbook you used before. Come on, nobody's buying this crap, but he's got more of it.
Would you take airstrikes against ISIS? Would you move special forces into Iraq? What would you do in Iraq?
Well, what we should have done in Iraq was
what would you do now?
Behind a force. Well, what I would do now, John, is, among other things, be realistic about the nature of the threat. When we're arguing over 300 advisors, when the request had been for 20,000 in order to do the job right, I'm not sure we've really addressed the problem. I would definitely be helping the resistance up in Syria, in ISIS' backyard, with training and weapons and so forth, in order to be able to do a more effective job on that end of the party.
Did you just say 20,000? You're going to send 20,000 American ground troops back into Iraq? Are you effing insane, man? And then he starts talking about, oh, we also have to arm the rebels in Syria. ISIS are rebels in Syria. Now, it's different kinds of rebels, and they fight one another, right? But are you talking about arming Sunni rebels in Syria and at the same time fighting against other Sunni rebels that have spilled over into Iraq? So we're going to arm both sides, the Iranian-backed Shia in Iraq and the Sunni rebels in Syria. The only people we're not going to arm is ISIS because, but yeah, we hate them. Gee, I wonder if they'll get arms somehow anyway. Oh, right, they already got a ton of arms from the arms we left behind that the Iraqi army couldn't guard. You know why? Because that's what Dick Cheney gets paid to do. He got a $34 million exit bonus from Halliburton when he became vice president. You know that? Halliburton's stock price during the Iraq war went up 5-fold. They made back in billions what they had paid to Dick Cheney in millions. So that's why this guy, who back in 1991 said going into Iraq is crazy, the Sunnis, Shia, and the Kurds would fight one another and we could never stabilize it. That same guy, that was Dick Cheney, has turned around now because of all that money burning in his pocket and said, more war, the answer is more war. So who's going to win this battle between Rand Paul and Dick Cheney, even within the Republican Party? I'm not talking about leadership. I'm not talking about the politicians. Those guys are still in the back pocket of the people who pay them. Defense contractors, oil companies, etc. But among Republican voters, Rand Paul is going to win. You know what they're doing? They're giving Rand Paul an excellent chance of winning the Republican primaries in 2016. Okay, now look, let me show you a poll that backs up what I'm saying. When they ask, hey, is President Obama dealing with Iraq right? Now remember, President Obama only sent in 300 guys. Cheney wants 20,000 to begin with. 41% said the response to the crisis has been about right. 29% said he should do more. 22% said he should do less. Okay? So, only 29% of the country wants to do more. Now, if you said ground troops to them, that number would plummet even further. Who's going to win? The guy who's on the side of the 29%? At most? Good luck to you, brother. My guess is that eventually, when push comes to shove, and you're going to have a vote on this, even Republican voters are going to say, no mas. We can't, to go back into Iraq to do what? To do what? And then you're going to tell me, Dick Cheney, this idiot's going to come out and tell me that mission's been accomplished again? That victory is around the corner? That we should stay the course? For how long? After we lose how many troops? After we spend how many trillions of dollars? We've already spent about $5 trillion in Iraq when all the costs are tallied. You're going to spend more? You're going to get Republicans to spend more. Look, you've tricked them before, but as George Bush once famously said, it's an old saying in Texas, maybe it's in Tennessee too. Oh, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me, can't get fooled again. And I think Bush is right about that. That's why I think Rand Paul is going to win.